Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin. I am a fourth year urology resident and I do videos about med school, residency, kind of like more life in those situations videos. And today I wanted to do a video comparing them. So I wanted to do a video of medical school versus residency. I have a video on my channel of undergrad versus med school, so I thought I'd do the next step now that I'm 4 years into residency. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe. Let's jump in. So the first comparison I want to make is about studying. You do still have to study in residency. And in medical school, you are studying to pass a test. You're studying in blocks. So I did like an anatomy block, a neuro block, a pathophys block. You're studying in blocks. You're studying concrete, sections of information to pass an exam. Theoretically, you are also studying for your future and for your specialty, but a lot of the times in first and second year, you don't know what specialty you want. You don't know what's going to translate more to your future job than others. While everything is important, there are some things that you're going to use every single day of your life and some things that potentially you're not going to use that often. And you just don't know like what that breakdown is because you don't know what you've matched in or what you want to do yet. In residency, you're still studying. Your studying is much more tailored to your specialty. So for me, I'm studying almost exclusively urology. So I'm studying, pathophys of urology, surgical techniques of urology, anatomy of usually like pelvic anatomy. And while the other stuff is still important, my day-to-day life centers around urology. So that's the stuff I really have to know and I really have to study. And I'm not necessarily only studying for a test. While we do have tests, we have our in-service exams and board exams, which are important to study for. I'm also studying just to care for my patients. So the nature of the studying changes. Instead of kind of memorizing and, learning algorithms and getting down numbers and getting down facts, I find that the studying is a little more holistic in the fact that you have to understand this and then be able to apply it to a real patient scenario. And not every patient scenario fits the books. They always say that, but it's completely true. There's patients who have multiple different things going on, or they're a little bit of one thing and a little bit of another thing, and you have to kind of understand the concept so you can figure out the best treatment plan for them. So I think it's a completely different way of studying. And sometimes I found it a little hard to kind of switch between those two. Instead of studying for a test, studying facts, like having things laid out like Anki cards, the more holistic understanding of it. The next thing I want to mention, and this may be pretty straightforward, but time. In medical school, you have so much time and you don't realize it. It's compared to undergrad, you're like, oh man, I'm so busy. I'm studying all the time. I have all this stuff to do. My medical school, at least, this was a lot self-driven, right? So you go to a class for 4 hours a day. I think we had 4 hours of required class a day, and really only 2 of that was required, and you could watch the lectures at home. And then the rest of it, you were self-guided. So after noon, you basically studied on your own, did whatever volunteering you had to do, but like kind of on your own time. Residency, I find a majority of my time is scheduled out, taken up by residency, obviously. So whether that be clinic or the OR, basically it's not self-driven. My time is scheduled in residency. My call time is scheduled. And I find I have so much less time for my own self-guided time. And in that time, you have to fit studying, potentially research, exercise, sleep, hang out with your friends. It's like that triangle. I think I've said this before in my videos, but it's like everyone says it's a triangle of sleep, friends, and studying, and you can only pick 2. And I just don't think you really realize what a difference, even in 3rd and 4th year of medical school, you are in the hospital every day, but not nearly as much as the residents. The next thing is how big of a deal or how important you think interactions are. When you're in medical school, I just remember, especially on my rotations in the hospital and like my away rotations, every single interaction seemed like such a big deal. Every single presentation I gave in the morning, I felt had to be absolutely perfect or everyone would judge me. Every single time that I maybe didn't know the answer to a question and the attending asked me in the OR, I'd freak out and I'd be like, oh my God, they're going to hate me. I'm going to get a terrible grade. This is the worst thing ever. And once you're in residency, you realize how wrong you were. yes, presentations are important, but if you flub something on a presentation, no, like, okay, fine, like we'll move on with our days. We have so much else going on in our mind while you're giving your 5-minute presentation. You know, we're kind of, yes, listening to your presentation, but also thinking about, okay, what are the next steps we have to take? Like, you know, what are we going to do for this patient? This person's getting paged. They're figuring out what's going on there. This person's like running to do something else on the floor. And, you know, there's just so much going on that your presentation is important, but it's not the all-encompassing moment of our day. And same with like getting a question wrong in the operating room. Attending asks you a question and you're like, oh my God, you know, I read about this, but I didn't remember the specific thing, or I didn't take it a layer deeper. And you think that's such a big deal. We're just impressed you knew like the first thing about it, you know, like I feel like don't expect medical students to know all of these facts about our specific specialty. And the fact that you even got a little bit of it or knew this little thing is impressive. And the fact that you got it wrong just gives, you know, us to kind of a chance to teach and explain. And I really liked, or some people really like to do that. So it's not a big deal if you don't know something, as long as you're honest and as long as you prepare a little bit. You know, we don't expect you to know everything, and we're just asking you the questions because, you know, say you answered one question right, we'll ask you the next deeper thing to see if you know it. But if not, like, no big deal. You're a third-year medical student. We don't expect you to know it. So it doesn't ruin your grade or ruin, you know, our impression of you. It's just something that we're just like, you know, chatting in the OR about. The next thing that I think is really different is feedback in medical school versus residency. In medical school, there's a lot of opportunities for formal feedback. Your first year, you have a lot of tests that you are getting scores on or getting grades on. You have the bigger board exams like step 1 and step 2, where you are compared to the rest of the people in your year. You know, you compare yourself to your classmates based on your class ranking and your tests. Every rotation you have, third and fourth year, has an opportunity for feedback. You know, the attendings will give you feedback, the residents will give you feedback. You have your MSPE meetings with your dean where that's given feedback. There's just a ton of opportunities for feedback and comparison. You have a lot more opportunity to compare yourself against other people in your year to kind of see where you stand. In residency, at least for me, I never work with my co-residents. So the people in my year, I never work with in the same hospital. We're all stationed at different hospitals. So I really don't know how I'm doing in comparison to them. I don't know, you know, where my operative skills stand. I can see the person a year above me who I operate with, or the person the year below me who I operate with. But really, to your co-residents, it's hard to find that, you know, comparison, which is good, I think, in some instances and can be harmful in others. And then feedback is a little more informal. So we do have formal meetings, and we have so we have a couple formal meetings in the year for feedback, and then one kind of test per year where we get feedback compared to the residents, the urology residents in your year across the country. But other than that, it's a lot more day-to-day or kind of attending feedback. Oh, you did this well in your case. In the case, you need to work on this. Or, oh, this op report, you know, was good, or this op report, I need you to include this, and this. And it's really attending dependent and rotation dependent. And some people really, really like the more formal feedback where everything is compared, and some people like this more informal feedback, and it really just depends on the person. Kind of along the same vein, you know, in speaking to comparison, instead of trying to outperform the people in your year or get the highest grade or get the highest ranking in the class, you're all trying to work together in residency. You're covering call for each other. You are, you know, working together to do a case. You are splitting up tasks, delegating. And so it's a much more team environment than I felt like medical school was. In medical school, I feel like it's much more individualized. Like, you're studying for a test, you're improving your grade. And yeah, you have study groups and everything, but ultimately it all comes down to you. In residency, I feel like it's so much more of a team effort between you and your co-residents, you and the residents like of all different years, you and the medical students, and you and your attendings. It's all such a team collaborative project. And then even outside of that, between you and the medicine residents, you and the surgery residents, it's all so much more collaborative than I felt medical school was. Finally, I think another fairly obvious difference, but something worth mentioning, is responsibility. In medical school, you are really not responsible for anything. Everything is double checked. You're not putting in orders. You are rarely, seeing a patient and yourself being the final say. You'll see a patient, then the resident will see a patient, then the attending will see a patient. Or you're never like doing a lot of responsibility in the OR. Maybe you're retracting or you're taking a few swipes of a terp, but you're not doing like the bulk of the procedure. You're mainly there to learn and to figure out, is this something I potentially want to do? In residency, you have so much more responsibility. You are pretty much like the first line of patient care. So if you say, listen, I'm not worried about this patient isn't sick, people will trust you on that. Your attendings will trust you. They're not going to micromanage and check every single thing. Yeah, you'll give more objective reporting and they might be like, ooh, that sounds questionable. But if you kind of tell them your impression, and they trust you to have the medical knowledge to do that, or you put in orders. Someone's not checking every single order you put in, So if you're ordering, a medication, you have to make sure you know the dosage, the timing, like you have to be on top of it. So it takes a lot of getting used to. I remember putting my first Tylenol order in as a resident. I was like, oh my God, is this right? I like triple checked. I made sure that I knew what I was doing. I made sure it was the right dose, the right route, like the right timing, everything. So I wouldn't like kill this patient's liver. And you get used to the responsibility, and it slowly ratchets up every year of residency, obviously, until you are able to kind of take care of patients on your own. But it is a big, big difference and something that definitely takes some getting used to. Those are some of the main differences I have found between medical school and residency. I'd love to know if you guys have any differences that I did not mention, or if you have any questions, please leave them below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.